Hey everyone, welcome to Conversations with Curtis. My name is Paul Morgan Stetler and I'm your host. And today I am super excited to share with you my conversation with Jane Jensen. Jane is a breakthrough pioneer in the world of adventure games, known for her work mostly on the Gabriel Knight series at Sierra Online, but also as a co-founder of the video game development companies Oberon Media and Pinkerton Road, where she created more recent games like Gray Matter, Hidden Chronicles, Moebius, and Gabriel Knight, Sins of the Father's 20th Anniversary Edition. And if that's not enough, she is also a prolific novelist, having written dozens and dozens of novels, both under her name and her pen name, Eli Easton. But what I want to know is, what has she done lately? Jane works regularly with her composer husband, Robert Holmes, who I spoke with a few months ago. Robert was, I think, instrumental in getting Jane to agree to talk with me, and I'm very grateful for that. And I'm very excited to share this interview with you. So please enjoy my conversation with Jane Jensen. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm good. It's a pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Sure.
Do you recognize the background here?
Yeah, it looks a little familiar. Is that from the opening /Ritter?
I think so. One of my fans did a number. He found, they're so creative. They found a lot of images online, and then he upscaled a lot of the backgrounds and just made them look really clean and pretty.
Oh, wow.
Things, yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah, really neat. How are you? How's your day going?
Pretty good. I'm just over COVID.
Oh no.
Yeah.
How did it go? Was it a bad one or a good one?
It wasn't terrible, but I had like a really bad head cold and some chest congestion and some body chills. I mean, it definitely wasn't a no symptom experience, but
I'm sorry. Yeah, it's happening. It seems like it's happening. I'm knowing more and more people now. For a long time, it was not in the world that I was in. And now it just seems like it's just a matter of time, right?
Yeah. I went up to Canada with a friend and we did some biking up there. And, I mean, it was pretty careful, but
I know.
Got it anyway.
I went to my nephew's high school graduation last week. And, we go up, I thought it was going to be outdoors. It's in this indoor sort of arena, thousands of, like 1,000 people are in there. And I'm just like, this is a COVID hotbed. And here I am, forgot to bring a mask because I was thinking that we'd be outside. So maybe I have it. I don't know. But anyways, thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. I feel like I have to ask you a very important question just before to see how this may dictate how the rest of the conversation goes, and that is, are you ready for my hard-hitting question here? Have you ever played Phantasmagoria 2?
No.
My credibility is shot then, because that's my only credit in the gaming world. So
no, sorry about that.
No worries. I guess we won't be able to solve the age-old question of who's cooler, Curtis Craig or Gabriel Knight. That may have to wait for another day.
Well, I'm open to bribes, so.
Well, as I mentioned in my email, and I got a chance to talk to Robert a few months ago, and he was very, very sweet. And my situation, and I'll try to make this brief because my fans have heard it a bunch of times, but I acted in that game a long time ago. I went on and did my career, and then last year during COVID, when everything shut down, I had a lot of free time, and it dawned on me that it was the 25th anniversary of the making of the game. And just for fun, I started a YouTube channel, and I just reached out to all of the people who made the game, Lorelei and Andy and all the creators and the artists and the actors. And we just reminisced and talked about what we remembered. It kind of created an oral history of the project. It was a lot of fun. A lot of people found us, a lot of fans of this genre from all over the world. And then when we finished, quote unquote finished at the end of the year, no one was done. So the idea was to keep doing more things. And so I played the game for the first time. I'd never played it before. And that was a surreal experience. And then just recently, I reached out to the actress who played Adrian in the first Phantasmagoria and got her to play that game for the first time, and they got a kick out of that. And so then the fans insisted. So I've only played 2 games so far in my life, and so the fans insisted that I play Beast Within, and so I am playing that every Friday, and we just got to chapter 6, and it is so much fun. Oh, wow. And it is such a pleasure to chat with you. And I have to start with a question that's been bugging me. Whose idea was it to put the cuckoo clock in the plant?
Well, first of all, so we are recording right now. So
yeah. We'll just keep on going if that's all right.
I remember the cuckoo clock, but I honestly don't remember it being in the plant.
that one
but it was probably my idea.
You'll take, yeah, my understanding is it was impossible for me to figure that out. I needed someone to talk me through it, but no, it's so much fun to do that, and you've done so much since then, and I would love to just kind of get to know you a little bit. I'm curious if you wouldn't mind just telling me a little bit about where you're from. Where did you grow up?
Well, many years ago. I was born in 1963 in a small town in Pennsylvania, and my father was a minister of a small church. So I grew up as a preacher's kid. Please excuse my coughing.
No, you're
over COVID.
No worries.
So I had a very fundamentalist upbringing, which I rebelled against early on, and but I think the fact that, my dad and like his whole family history, he's had a number of ministers in his family. And I think just my interest in the metaphysical comes from that side of the family, the occult and what happens when we die and just anything paranormal.
Yeah.
So I've always been interested in that, but interestingly, my career now, I write romance. I really don't. I think I've written one story that was kind of like a Sixth Sense kind of a story with a guy who could see ghosts, but otherwise I really don't deal with it at all anymore, which is unfortunate. But that was really my interest when Gabriel Knight came along. So anyway, fast forward, I graduated college in 1983 with a degree in computer science.
Yeah. So how did you get to how did computer science come into you? What were you like as a kid? Were you when you were younger, what were your interests early on? Besides,
Well, my dad is very much an Asperger's kind of guy. He was a math teacher and a chemist, as well as being a minister. He eventually quit teaching to be a minister full time. But I have a very logical brain. I'm very pattern oriented. So like my mom tells a story about when I was little, probably 4 or 5, she was laid up in bed after back surgery. And I was the youngest of 7 kids.
7 kids.
Youngest of 7. So apparently during the day when other kids were all at school, I would entertain myself by laying out quilt blocks on the stairs, like for hours, just like changing the patterns up. And so, and I still have that interest. Like I've always loved puzzles. I love jigsaw puzzles. I do quilting now, just anything with like color patterns is really interesting to me. And you may know that after I did adventure games, I did casual games for a number of years.
Yeah.
So I love casual games. So I've always had that sort of gamer part of my brain, but it's definitely from my dad. Anyway, so I graduated college in 1983 and then went to work for Hewlett Packard full time in Silicon Valley.
Okay. What were you doing for them?
This is like 1983. So
yeah, really.
There wasn't even laptops then. There was mainframes, and so we were programming in Pascal and HPL, which is like the Hewlett Packard language, which was a Pascal-like language. But I was doing networking software, like literally how the drivers talk to one another. It was very low level technical stuff, and we'd get dumps of like that were this thick of just like hex code, hex readouts from computers, so you'd have to go through there and figure out where the error was. But so when laptops first came out, I bought my first laptop from Hewlett Packard. Employee discount was $5,000.
Wow.
And I went to the mall and picked up, it was like King's Quest 4 and Manhunter San Francisco, and I think there might have been a Larry game in there. But I immediately became obsessed with that.
So was that, I was going to ask you, what the first game was that kind of got you hooked, and it's those ones there?
Yeah.
What was it about? What was it about the game?
That was the last generation of games where you had to actually type in, go north or
right.
Pick up the ring or whatever. But I just love the combination of, some storytelling and the graphics and the logic of like figuring out what to do. And I just loved it.
And of all of those, because you ultimately designed and created something where your hand was in every piece of that puzzle. But what was the first thing that, like, were you more hooked on the story element? Were you more hooked on the puzzle and the figuring things out? I'm curious where you got
probably the latter, but I've also always been a big reader and always wanted to be a writer. So, that was the combination, this is why I applied to Sierra, combination of like storytelling and interactively, which was sort of a new thing. Interactive storytelling was like new then. With the puzzles, that was just like my absolute sweet spot. So
yeah. Was anybody in your family, because you have 6 brothers and sisters, did any of them gravitate towards that type in this world at all, or are you the only one?
No, I don't really think so. I don't think any of my older siblings are gamers at all. I mean, maybe like, crossword puzzles. And,
right.
Yeah, the daily New York Times crossword puzzle. My sister is an absolute whiz at that, man. She can do one of those in like an hour, but not computer games.
Yeah, so you're at Hewlett Packard, you find this game, and then do you just on a whim reach out to Sierra? Is that the first place that you reached out to in terms
those were Sierra games, and I ended up buying everything else that they had published and playing it. And then I wrote to them and I sent them a short story that, I was writing at the time. I had a novel in progress that never got published, and I had published a few short stories. So my goal at that time, that I was working was to eventually quit and be a full-time novelist.
So it wasn't the work you were doing in computer science at Hewlett Packard wasn't, you could tell that was not going to be your path.
No, I mean, it was obviously a great paycheck, and back then, man, it was a great place to work because they, every morning they would roll out like coffee and a whole buffet of breakfast foods, and there was a cafeteria downstairs. Yeah. I mean, it was like those were the days where you had some major benefits,
right?
And looking at it now from approaching retirement age, I'm like, if I had stayed with Hewlett Packard, I'd have a really nice retirement package right now. But the actual work itself was kind of boring,
right?
And so anyway, I wrote to Sierra and I sent them a short story, and I said, look, I'm an engineer. I can do programming, I can do QA, I can do writing, anything. I just want to get my foot in the door. I'll do anything. And so at the time they had just, Sierra was going through this growth phase where they had hired Bill Davis, who was like a legit, Emmy winning LA director guy. And he was trying to reform the whole creative team. So he started a writer's block to bring in what he called professional writers to help out the established designers like the Coles and Allo, and not Al so much, Jim Walls, who was right. He did the Police Quest series, and Roberta. And the idea was to sort of elevate the Sierra games to sort of a more of a Hollywood, professional level.
Yeah.
So anyway, I had sent this in, like a year later, after I had sent it in, I got a call,
Oh, wow.
and the guy who was starting up the writers group said, I found your resume and I found the short story, and the last page was missing. And I was so pissed off that the last page was missing. And then I realized, wow, I must have been really hooked if the last page got that upset. So they brought me in for an interview, and ended up getting hired into that writer's block.
Wow. Well, you were in California, so it wasn't too far of a commute, I
Yeah,
guess.
it was about a 4-hour drive to go over there to interview. But
Right. And did you end up moving to, is it Oakhurst? Is that where it was originally?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What was it like? What were those early days like?
You know, I don't think we recognized it at the time, but I think those days in Sierra were kind of the golden era of adventure games. And it was a great place to work. I mean, there was definitely, interpersonal dramas and things going on, but I was just so passionate about becoming a designer and working on games. And
Were you married? Were you married at the time that you took?
No.
No, you got married once you were there, or I know that you and Robert met later. Were you married prior to Robert? Oh no, I lost you.
Yeah, I met my husband there.
Oh, okay.
There you go. Yeah, I met my husband there.
And then how long did that last? I don't mean to be personal. I just know that you and Robert, I talked to Robert a little bit, and if I remember correctly, you were both with other people, and then you found each other, or the relationships ended, and then you found each other, and that you still had to work with your exes, and it was one of those kind of, had to be around the people that you.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, there was a little drama there, but I mean, we've been together now for we had our 25th anniversary last year, our wedding anniversary, but we were dating 4 years before that. So it's been almost 30 years.
Congratulations. He told us a funny story of how you tried to sneak off and go see a movie, but everybody was sneaking off to see the movie, and you ended up seeing all your coworkers at the.
We had to come clean. We got caught. Yep.
So, what was the first game that you worked on as a writer?
It was first game I was assigned to was Police Quest 3, I think it was. And Jim Walls was a designer on there, and so I did most of the dialogue and the text messages that would play, and there was like the documentation that came in the box. There was like a whole like case file, like detective-y kind of thing that was in there. And that was great. It was a lot of fun. It was to go from loving these games from the outside and playing them fanatically to suddenly writing the messages that appear on the screen was amazing. It was
I'll bet. And it sounds to me like, your experience being able to compartmentalize, from an early age has to be helpful when it comes to tracking a story that's going to go down so many different potential roads, right? And you must have a brain for being able to keep all that in space, or at least a method in which to do that.
Yeah, I think it's, game design to me is, and not every game designer does it the same way. Some are more higher level operators, whatever. But I found it to be, it's extremely logic intensive. It's like programming with fiction, little snippets of fiction, and fortunately, I just have, fortunately, I mean, like when I took my GREs, I mean, I was like, 98th percentile in logic. I mean, that's my strongest suit by far. Better than English or anything else, history or math. I suck at math, but so, that was kind of why I liked computer science in the first place. Programming is very logic based. And that really translated over well to game design, at least the way that I game design. It's very much branch oriented and logic oriented.
Yeah. And so what was it that led, was Gabriel Knight, the first Gabriel Knight, was that your first game that you were the sole creator of, or did you have one prior to that? That
was the first one that I did completely on my own. There were
how did that come about? That. Yeah. How did it come to them giving you that opportunity?
Well, I had the year before that, Roberta was getting ready to do another King's Quest. I guess it was 6 at that point. And she always typically worked with another writer because, she worked part-time. And, so she usually was sort of more like the high level person. And then she would have somebody to do the kind of the more grunt day-to-day work on site. And so I was given the chance to be that person with her, as to co-design King's Quest 6, which was amazing, and so much fun. So I worked with the team in-house on that, and she would get builds. So first of all, we sat down to design it. I went over to her house, which was on the lake, beautiful home. And you just sat with a huge, like, these pads of paper that were probably 3 foot by 4 foot long, right, big, and, sketched stuff out. So she was very much sort of a high level sketch kind of designer. And so we laid it all out. It spent maybe 2 weeks just doing the high level concept. And then I went in and wrote the details for it. And she had approval over all that stuff. And then she would get builds and, she would return like 12 pages of notes. There's a white pixel in the sand that is confusing people because it's not really anything, but people will think it's something. So don't remove that white pixel. I mean, very detailed comments that she would get back. So after that experience, I think it went really well and the game was successful and they liked the game. So after that, then they gave me the chance to pitch my own series. And I pitched Gabriel Knight.
And did you have that in your back pocket already? Or where did you get you can pitch something and then you had to frantically come up with the idea?
It's the latter. I knew that I wanted to do some kind of mystery series because I just thought that, the act of gameplay, what you actually do gameplay wise, would really work well with a murder mystery format, right? Because you're picking up clues, you're interrogating people. So I wanted some kind of detective. And like I said, at the time, I was really into sort of the paranormal stuff. So I wanted some kind of paranormal detective. And initially I was thinking like a professor of parapsychology or something that investigate cases with the students. But I guess that was a little bit too much like Indiana Jones. And I think really like a lot of Gabriel Knight was actually fashioned when I got the idea for the first case, the Sins of the Fathers, because I knew I wanted to be set in New Orleans. I knew I wanted it to be voodoo related.
I was born in New Orleans in 1963, by the way. So we're the same age. And
oh my gosh.
Yeah, class of 81, right? Are you 81?
80. I started school a little early.
Okay. All right. So probably listened to much Pretenders and Joe Jackson. And were you into that kind of music back in the day?
I grew up in Ohio, so it was more the Bruce Springsteen and the real blue collar stuff.
Yeah, right. Anyways, I'm sorry I interrupted.
Yellow and
oh yeah, for sure.
What were we talking about?
You had
how Gabriel Knight came about.
So
anyway, so voodoo in New Orleans. I don't know. I came up with this idea of sort of like they're having a backstory. I had just taken the screenwriting class and I wanted to have a mirrored plot where, what was going on now was mirroring this event that happened like in the 1700s. And it was about witchcraft and, that really defined, like, how do I make that work? Well, that it only really worked when Gabriel was descended from these witch hunters. That's really where the idea of the Schottenjäger came from.
Okay, that's great. And so, and then you ended up had you spent any time in New Orleans yourself prior to that?
No, I had been there since then, but at the time I wrote it, I had never been there.
Okay.
But I called up, again, this is like early 90s, right? It came out in 93. So it wasn't as easy then to just get online and Google a bunch of images. So which I do now. So I called a bookstore in New Orleans, a little bookstore, and had them send me a bunch of like picture and history books of New Orleans. And that's kind of where it came from.
That's where it came from. So sight unseen, but it was an environment that you were fascinated with and wanted to
mainly because of Anne Rice's books, I think. I read all of her stuff in high school and I mean college. So Interview with a Vampire, a lot of her stuff is set in New Orleans because she actually did live there.
Right.
The time she wrote that stuff. And Angel Heart was another huge
I love that
influence.
Movie. Yeah. I heard that you were influenced on that. I remember that. I've talked about that quite a bit. And in fact, there's a couple of, talking to Lorelei, I don't think that was a main influence, but that type of film, what was the other one? Jacob's Ladder, those kinds of things had a big influence on her when she was putting together Puzzle of Flesh. That's fascinating. So how did you come up with Gabriel, and where did his personality come from? And Grace, how did you come up with those two characters? Were they fully formed when you were thinking about it, or did his?
I wanted a lot of funny banter. I wanted the opportunity to be able to write a lot of snappy banter, and so I needed my two characters to be at loggerheads, to some extent. And I wanted Gabriel to be a rogue. He's a classic rogue character, like from romance books. The bad boy who. Right. will never settle down, and so I guess that he's pretty much sort of probably descended directly from Regency romance rogue characters.
That's great. And then so you pitch it, and did they immediately bite, or did you have to? What was that? How long did it take before you knew you were able to do this?
Well, I've told the story before, but, Ken Williams, I give all the props in the world to Ken, because the great thing about that environment was that he trusted creators. So, if you were the designer, and then, when Bill Davis came along, they assigned a director to a project. So the director then was the creative head, and the designer could be sort of like the schmo who just like writes the stories, the script. But when whoever the creative was on the project, Ken gave them absolute authority. I mean, there was a creative head on each project,
right?
And and so he had a lot of faith in his creators. And so when he saw the Gabriel Knight stuff, his basic response was, I don't like it. I think games should be funny and entertaining. I don't think they should be dark and scary, but if you believe in it, I'm gonna let you do it. And you've got this shot, and if you screw up and it doesn't sell, then you'll never make a game for me again. It's like, oh, okay.
Wow.
But, yeah, but that was his philosophy, is like, you let somebody have the creative control. You don't try to micromanage it.
You can't force your vision on someone else, and you have to. So, and he seems to understand that his vision might have some limitations, and that is the best thing for him to do is to see what let someone give it a shot, right?
Yeah, which was great. I mean, it's not, for whoever was in charge of that project, the designer or the director, because I've been on both sides of it. I had, the first 3 or 4 projects I did at Sierra, I was not the creative head of the project. But it was they were so supportive. I mean, everything about Gabriel Knight, we went, and the guy who was in charge of Mark gosh, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to remember his last name. But
I can't remember. I've been playing your game every Friday, and a week goes by, and I'm like, I can't remember half the stuff we did the week before. So it's all new to me. I get it.
Everybody at Sierra was so supportive. When we went in and we said we need a graphic novel to be shipped with this. I mean, we need a triangular box. We need, Tim Curry. It's like.
And how did you actually? How great to have that kind of. You asked for the moon and you got it. I mean, when it comes to the voice talent and such, were you? Did you think that was going to happen? I mean, how cool was it to get Tim Curry and Mark Hamill and people like that?
Well, it was a miracle. It was serendipitous, I guess, because what happened was. So I remember at that time we were in development on Gabriel Knight, and King's Quest 6 just had both voices done for it. And so we had put out a King's Quest 6 that did not have voices, but it was like the new hot thing. So they were producing the voice track for King's Quest 6 while we were in early development of Gabriel Knight. And I was involved a little bit in that because I had written a lot of the dialogue and so forth. So they got Robbie Benson to play
I love
King
Robbie
Graham.
Benson. Yeah.
Woohoo. But anyway, so we were, we were told that we would have, they wanted us to have voices on release. So we started the process of that early on, but it was so new. And we got a director, Stu Rosen, who lived in LA, and he was a well-known voiceover director. He'd done, a gazillion, cartoons and commercials and, dubbing of foreign movies. And I mean, he just was like a long time voiceover guy. So he's the one who got us that cast. I mean, I can't take any credit for it at all. But he knew everybody in the industry.
Yeah, that's great.
And so he would just call him and say, "Hey, you want to do this project?" And because it was so new, it was like one of the first computer games ever to have voices. And so the whole Hollywood was like, "Oh, this is going to be a whole new revenue stream. This is going to be a huge, big deal." So he got all these actors to sign on for basically, SAG minimum. I think is what we paid all these people. Because they knew him really well, and he asked them personally, and they were interested in getting their foot in the door on this new technology, right? So he's completely 100% solely responsible for this cast.
Wow, that's amazing.
It was amazing. Yeah, in fact, so Gabriel was really hard, and he sent me auditions on tape for, I don't know, probably 20, 30 Gabriels, and none of them were right.
Oh, no.
And so I said, the thing that was hard about him was that his dialogue is really sarcastic, right? So he could come out just sounding like an asshole if the wrong person reads it. You need somebody that can be sarcastic and yet remain really likable and kind of funny,
Yeah.
And so I told him that, well, this just wasn't working. And he's like, "Well, what about Tim Curry?" And I'm like, "Tim Curry? Oh my gosh, but like, he's phenomenal, but he's British. Really, how is he going to do this Southern guy?" Right. And he goes, "Well, I think he can do it. Let me just get him. Let me see if I can get him to read for it." So he got Tim Curry to audition for it and sent me the tape. And we were just like, so the team was very tight, I would say. We had these 2 rooms we were in. So like there was this one room where I was sitting next to Robert, who was a producer, and we had all the artists in there. And then there was another room that had all the programmers. They were right next to each other. And I've never been on a team that was that dedicated, and everybody on the team loved the game so much and loved the script so much, and we're so dedicated to it, and really felt like we were doing something new and exciting and kind of I wouldn't say groundbreaking, but really really unique.
Yeah.
And anyway, so we all got crowded around to listen to the audition. We were just laughing and like so excited about it. So
Robert, Robert shared some of those audition tapes with me, so we got to listen to some of those when we talked. It's amazing. And he did like 4 different takes of the same, just to give you a different element of how he could handle a line, and it was always different and always fresh, and it was really, really neat to hear those.
He's so talented.
Yeah.
And then so when we started voiceover, I went down for the first couple of weeks just to sort of make sure that all the characters were like, just to sort of be in the first couple of sessions for each character to make sure that the character was nailed. Yeah. And we had a problem with the first grace we had. We had cast somebody, and we had our first session, and Stu and I were there, and he kept sort of offering corrections and stuff, and like after about an hour he was just we were just like, this is not working. So I'm like, "What are we going to do?" And he's like, "Well, I'll just call her agent and tell her that we can't use her." I'm like, "Oh, it's so terrible to do that to somebody," but it's like, no, this is the business. This happens. So so we dumped her, and then we had to find somebody else. And he's like, he knew Leah Remini, and he's like, "What about Leah Remini? I think she could really." I'm like, "Well, yeah, she could really be great." So yeah,
So
it was all stew,
it
really.
all worked. Yeah. And then how could, when it came out, was it immediately well received? Did it go as well as you had hoped, better?
Yeah, I remember we went to, I think it was CES that year. And we worked really hard to get the first chapter on disc to give out as a demo for the first whole day. And I can't remember if I had voices or not. Probably didn't. But so we gave that out at CES. And from then, I mean, like, we got tons of press from that. People, you know, they loved it. I think it was that, you know, just that Sierra was doing something dark and gritty and, you know, scary. You know, it wasn't, first day wasn't that scary, but, you know, it was just so different for Sierra. Yeah. And so
what year was it? What year did the first one come out? Was that
93?
93. And then less than 2 years later, you're doing Beast Within.
Beast Within came out in 95.
So the amount, it's kind of boggles my mind to think about how you could write, produce.
I was going to show you something really quick.
Yeah,
I have something on my wall.
Yeah.
This is Can you see that?
I can. Yeah.
So that's the cover from the first game.
Wow.
And that's one of Sierra's in-house magazine. That's not a big deal, but there's a picture of Bob and Tim and I.
Bring it down just a teeny bit down. There you go.
That's awesome. From the first session. Yeah. Anyway,
what
so that was 93.
Well, I'm just going to say that you well, after you pitch, you write, you create, you design this entire game. It comes out in 93, and then there's all of a sudden there's FMV, which has never been done before, and Sierra produces Phantasmagoria, and then almost immediately after, is that when you guys began? I mean, it's like it was all like within a year, right? That you did these two.
I remember I was working on the story for Beast Within, and you know, that, like, the first high level story, and I got a call from, you know, I was living there close to Sierra, but I think I was working on the story at home. But anyway, I got a call that, you know, they wanted me to come in and check out the new studio because Phantas 1 was filming, and that was the first FMV game that we did. And Ken wanted me to go look at it to see, you know, because he really wanted me to do Beast Within with the same technology. So I went over to this blue screen studio and watched them filming a little bit of Phantas. And I was excited. I thought it was really fun and really great and would be really neat to work with live actors. And so, you know, from that point on, I was trying to visualize the story as live action. And, you know, eventually wrote, after the story was done, wrote a actual screenplay kind of script for it that was huge. I mean, it was like 900 pages long.
That's what I had heard. So I remember same thing with Phantas 2. When I got the script after I had gotten hired, I don't think it was that long, but I know it was probably it was that thick. You know, it was 500-600 pages, and I a lot of it I didn't. It wasn't meant for me. You know, I had a lot of it was the game, or there was so much packed into the script. But you're writing not only the story and the dialogue, but you're also having to track all of what the gamers' options are. And I imagine what else goes into that script that needs to be, that makes it 900 pages. Is it just the fact that there's so many different ways to go with it, or?
Well, the way we structured the game was that, every time the player clicked on something, they would get a response. And the response could be just a line of a line of voiceover from the narrator, from Gabriel. Right. I can't do that, or,
Yeah.
Look at that thing,
That's me, Gabriel Knight.
but it often would trigger a video sequence. So every single video sequence had a number. So, if this happens, play video sequence 10. If this happens, play video sequence 13. If this, then there were just hundreds of these things. So every single response that had a video sequence, then had a little script, and the script might be this long. It might be Gabriel turns to the door and opens it.
Right.
Or
right.
It could be,
How do you pack all that in your head, though? I mean, so you had, how long do you think it took you to write that script? From conception to, to how was the script changing through while you were shooting it, or was it done and you locked it in?
It was pretty much locked in, but I think I was probably still working on the last few chapters while the early stuff started shooting. I think we had, basically the layout, so the way we did it is just to go room by room. So, there usually was a story document that would have with 100 pages that had the full story of what happens, where he goes and who he talks to, and, all that. But then you go to the next level is room. So everything that happens in the hunt club, for example, and, so we knew, before it began, the whole scope of it, but, probably the actual line of dialogue, may not have been done for the last couple quarter of the scenes when we started filming the first of it. But yeah, I mean, I loved it.
That's amazing. You seem to me someone who does not suffer from writer's block. Are you always able to, is there something you're always able to produce and move forward? Is it your output is insane.
It gets the well gets a little dry. I mean, I don't think that really happened to me much when I was in computer games, because I only did the 3 Gabriel Knights, King's Quest, and then a number of casual games that had some stories, but it really wasn't that many. Now I'm writing romance. I mean, I'm probably on my 52nd novel. So
52nd novel.
It gets a little, I'm gonna write, it gets a little bit dry sometimes, and it can be challenging to find the inspiration to get you excited to write this new story. But I don't remember ever having writer's block back then. No.
Yeah.
I was too into it.
Well, Jane, I promised I would stay in a good time frame. There's so much that it's kind of mind-boggling to think how much, there's so much that we could talk about. There's so many things that you've done, of course, since Sierra and Gabriel Knight, and I'd love to talk about your studio with, and you did that wonderful Kickstarter that got the studio going and those games. I do have a bunch of questions that have come in from your fans. And if you don't mind, I'll just try to zip through a few of these and see if you can answer some of those. And then I'd love to before I let you go, I'd love to show you a few little images and then maybe have you comment on those, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So let's see. Adventure Game Geek wants to know if Schottenjägers really exist.
No, I don't think so.
How did you come up with that? How did you come up with that?
I think, like I said, it came out of the idea for the first game of just wanting to do the voodoo and having this reflect this older story. And, in order to do that sort of mirroring of those two storylines, I needed to have, sort of a Gabriel in the past, basically, which was a witch hunter.
Great. Space Quest historian says, given that you've worked with Lorelei Shannon in the past, and that you were both horror game designers under the same company, but with very different styles and approaches, it would be interesting to hear how you would have done Phantasmagoria 2 and how you think Lorelei might have done Gabriel Knight differently.
Gosh. I never played Phantasmagoria 2, so that's a little difficult, but I do know enough about Phantasmagoria 1, which I know she didn't design, it was Roberta, but
well, yeah, you and Roberta.
I don't really know. I think I'm probably more detail oriented and history oriented than
Yeah.
Lorelai. I think she's very, a little bit more pop in a good way. So I don't know. I mean, it's hard to imagine her doing Gabriel Knight, but if she,
Well, you take
I mean,
so
if
much.
she had if Sierra had said, "Hey, Lorelai, Jane is not no longer around. Please do Gabriel Knight." Of course, you probably would have done it.
Sure.
I'm sure it would be fun. It would be a great game.
Yeah.
Probably lots of jump scares and ghosts and ghoulies.
Well, the one thing, the one advantage that we had in terms of production that you guys didn't was that after with Phantasm 1 and 2 being shot on blue screen, they made this decision to we had sets and we shot on location, and we there was hardly any blue screen at all, so we got to film it like it was a movie. I mean, they had a studio up here in Seattle and Redmond, I think, and they built Curtis's apartment, the office building, all this stuff. And so we had it was wonderfully designed, and art direction was great. So I had the luxury of not having to imagine what was in front of me, like Dean and the actors for your game and for Roberta's. So that was thanks to you.
Yeah, that would have been nice.
Yeah, it was. And it seems to me, did you feel like, I mean, I'm going to veer a little bit, but it seemed, did you feel like FMV, did you know early on that it didn't have the ability to last, or did you think that there was a real future for that kind of?
No, I thought we all at the time thought it was going to be huge and going to just continue to grow and get better, and
Yeah. It fizzled quick. It went away fast, but we got some good stuff out of it. Sebastian wants to know, he said, growing up in Altötting, rather small town on the map, I was shocked seeing it featured in GK2. How did this come about? And he also wanted to know, he's never found the exterior images. He said, I visited nearly every GK place in GK2, but never found the exterior images of the Huber Farm or hunting lodge. Were these buildings that you actually went to?
Those, no, so we made a couple trips out there. Bob and I went out there on a scouting trip when I was still working on the story.
Mm-hmm.
And, by then, I knew that it was going to involve Ludwig and werewolves. And so we went to all the Ludwig sites we could find. And of course, Neuschwanstein and Karen Chiemsee and, various, the Munich Palace and various places. We went to where he died, where he walked into the lake, which is also in the game. But I read it was a biography of him that had like one line that his, because we did see his crypt, it was under a church, probably in Munich. But there was one line that in a book that said, he's buried here, but his heart is in an urn in Alt-Otting, which was a tradition with royalty. And I thought, well, that's really weird. That's really bizarre. Like to have your heart taken out and put in some kind of, because I think they even had a picture of the urn or something like. So we just decided to, we found it on the map. It was a tiny place, and we just decided to go ahead and go check it out. And oh man, like when we drove into that, there's a central square which is just wide open, and there's like this little tiny old church in the middle of it that's like blackened, like it's bizarre. And then all around the outside, there's all the little, legs and arms and hearts and lungs, all these little charms and crutches, and it's like crazy. Having that background and that sort of, genetic predisposition to anything like weird and religious, I was just fascinated by that. And I was like, we have to have this in the game. So that's how that came about.
That's great.
And then what was the question? The Huber Farm. So after we went, then once we were actually producing the game, the creative director, Nathan Gams, and his wife, Darlou, took another trip there, I think with Sabina, our producer, who was German. And they basically, the whole point of that trip was just to get as many photographs as possible to do the backgrounds. So they just went everywhere, looking for these locations and taking pictures. So I'm sure those locations were something that they found and or maybe cobbled together from several different places. Kind of like the castle was something that, I think it was a real building that existed, but they sort of altered it graphically. So that's where they come from. And I had never seen those locations.
Are you aware of how many, I imagine, like, I have a small sense of this on my own for the one game I did, but I can only imagine the amount of, how it must be overwhelming how many people still love this game, still reach out to you, and how much it impacted them. People have taken Gabriel Knight tours of
That's great.
GK2. And so someone writes,
and we've seen videos. People have sent us videos of like this elaborate stuff that they've done. It's
well,
awesome.
I'm going to share one with you before we go. Brett wrote, as a developer who has always been interested in pushing the envelope for adventure games in terms of technology, if you were to develop a new adventure game in 2022, what sort of modern day tech do you think would best serve to allow further innovation within the genre? Anything?
I would love to do a VR game myself. I think that would be really, really awesome. I mean, even back then, I remember giving interviews like in the 90s saying, what is the future? If you could actually be, feel like you are personally in a setting and you can just move around freely and pick up anything you want to and do it. And that's what I would,
yeah,
I think is the ultimate.
I think so too. And I think that there are games out there now. I talked with, again, I'm so out of it, but I'm learning. I'm actually becoming, it's a technology that I never was particularly interested in, but now I'm doing this. I'm playing games and seeing why people love them so much. And I did VR for the first time, and I was in a Shark Tank. And so I got lowered into. Man, it's just fascinating. And I guess there are ones that are like not, high energy. There are ones where you could like just explore the Grand Canyon, or you could just, it's so fascinating. It seems like that's something that could be utilized as a first person, story, right? Okay, let's see. Rohan, everybody wants another Gabriel Knight game. Of course, you hear that all the time. Is there any sort of announcement you'd like to make today? Is there anything in the cooker, or is that something you continue to?
No, I mean, we worked with Activision to get the remake of GK1 done during our Kickstarter, and that was really, really hard. Everything gets stuck in their legal department. It's like, basically, if it's not going to make them $10 million, they just don't care about it. Just it's not worth their effort to even look at it. So that was really pulling teeth. There was a lot of periods where I didn't think that, because we had started that project and there was somebody there at Activision who was really into the old Sierra stuff. And they helped us get that. Initially, Activision was making that game. And then they just canceled it like a couple months in. So we had to fight to get the rights to take the material and do it with a different team. And, just took months and months and months of trying to negotiate that. So, and since then, I mean, I probably have somebody contact me twice a month looking for the film rights. I mean, from I'm a film student to, I work for this company. We produced these 5 big movies. We're interested in this. And I cannot get Activision to respond to these people at all.
Do you feel like maybe it's going to change with Microsoft? There might be more of an open door?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm hearing that it will. So I don't know even where that's at. I know I'm still sending royalty payments to Activision. So I don't even know where that purchase is at. But I hope so.
Yeah.
I mean,
do you have a fully formed GK4 in your brain or in a file somewhere?
I had, at the time, I had a concept for it. It was going to be about witches, and we were going to set it originally in Scotland. But I don't know if that would even still be what we would want to do if we had the chance to do it. But, because I had this idea that Grace Grace had taken off, and so there's a whole thing about them, and so there is an idea there, and I've also thought about like, okay, just give me the rights to do books. I'll do 4 more books, and you can have the rights. Just then there's stories developed. So if a game does come up, you have the story already. Wouldn't that be good for you guys? But again, it's just like getting them to put the effort into making a contract for anything. It's just like,
oh, that's so frustrating.
It's just not worth their time. Yeah,
so frustrating, and it's not worth their time. But they're keeping others whose time it would be worth from doing something with it. They need to practice Ken Williams's way of doing things, saying, "Yeah, it's not for me, but I'll let you give it a try."
Yeah, right, exactly.
Nyan writes, was von Glauer supposed to be canonically bisexual or canonically gay? Lots of fans seem to stand with either, so I would love to hear how you intended to write the character.
I'd say he was bisexual, but because there was a woman that was in one of those scenes. But I think that in terms of so I would say he was bisexual sexually, but in terms of actually like forming a relationship with somebody, he was, that he like would bring into the fold, to be another werewolf or be part of his group. It was all about the guys. He was. I don't think that he would connect that way with a female.
Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying this interview. We'll get back to it in just a minute, but before we do, I want to take this moment to say the only reason we're able to watch this right now is because of the generous support of my Patreon members. And the only way I can do my next interview is the generous support of my Patreon members. I would like you to be one of my generous Patreon members so that we can continue to do these interviews. My hope is to do 1 of these a week and maybe eventually even 2 of these a week. And we can cover more and more of these incredible artists who have created so many of your favorite games. So before we get back to the interview, just hop on Patreon real quick and sign up. Now go ahead, I'll wait. Patreon.com. Yeah, all good? Great. Now back to my interview. Right. Okay. All right. So if you don't mind, if you're okay for a few more minutes, just
sure.
Okay. I want to just share with you a little bit of a few photographs, or actually before I do that, I want to share with you a little promo video that you may not have seen for a long time. Let me get this here. There we go. So you should see that interactive entertainment right there.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember this?
I mean, I'm aware of the era. I don't remember this.
Okay. Well, this came out. This was a promo for Gabriel Knight 2. So it came out maybe in 1995. So well before the game was made. It wasn't even cast yet. So I just thought you might get a kick out of watching the first few seconds of this.
Sure.
You see that okay? Now, this is not Robert's
Although
music.
Good computer horror games are few and far between, there are a number of creepy delights waiting in the wings. One of the most anxiously awaited of this frightening flock will surely be The Beast Within, the latest adventure of witch hunter Gabriel Knight from Sierra. The original Gabriel Knight, Sins of the Fathers, quickly became a critic's favorite for its strong emphasis on character and mood, but some were put off by the animated graphics, which were not exactly cutting edge. No one will be able to make that complaint about The Beast Within. It will benefit from Sierra's brand new multimedia studio, constructed for fans.
So in this particular promo, it's saying some people had problems with the graphics. I mean, that's not a good promo. It's saying no one will say anything about this. So this part, I think you'll get a kick out of.
Phantasmagoria. Like Phantasmagoria, The Beast Within will feature digitized actors working against computer-rendered backgrounds.
Digitized actors. Now that's probably a person that looks familiar to you.
Bob told me about this. I don't remember this at all.
So for those who don't know that,
I do remember filming these test sequences.
Yeah, so this is Robert Holmes, right? Who your husband and the composer of the game. Do you remember who that person was?
Mike Hutchinson, who was an artist on our he was an artist on our game, and he was an artist on Q+6 too.
Oh, that's great. So then here we go.
This is the new Gabriel Knight. He sure looks right, even though he may not have the distinctive voice of Tim Curry.
This is the new Gabriel Knight, they say.
Oh my God. That's horrible. What? I don't know who produced this, but
yeah, well, I don't have to show you the whole thing, but it kind of goes through all that.
Please go ahead.
Oh, you want to watch the rest of it? Sure, let's do it.
Sure.
Beast Within, but they did say that they're not interested in name power as with maintaining authentic atmosphere. If nothing else, the Gabriel Knight series will certainly become known for colorful scenario locations. The original game led the player into the voodoo secrets of the New Orleans French Quarter. Now Gabriel is exploring his German ancestry in the land once known as Bavaria, and becomes caught up in an adventure revolving around King Ludwig II, Richard Wagner, and werewolves. As with the first adventure, Gabriel's only hope of solving the mystery is extensive conversation with the locals. His best chance to...
So all of this is just, it's close, but it's not what the game actually is. It doesn't have... It's a little different than
this information
what I've been playing lately.
Club.
It's been really early.
German heritage to
1,300.
Of course,
scenes.
Gabriel's faithful secretary Grace is not one to be left out of the picture. In fact, she comes into her own in The Beast Within, following her own researches and discovering numerous critical facts. Gabriel Knight is not a pleasant character, but he is a well-rounded and interesting one. The Beast Within promises to maintain the high standards of writing and character from the first game, and to vastly improve on the graphics. Look for it this summer.
Vastly improved on the graphics. They really are short selling your. They really are short selling your game here. Oh, let me stop that. All right. So here's what I want to show you now. You should be able to see this. Okay. This was the new Gabriel Knight. Oh, let me get rid of that. That was the new Gabriel Knight.
Oh man.
Do you know who that is?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have another. We tracked him down, or one of our fans tracked him down. Nathan Gams, yeah.
Yeah.
And can you tell us who he is?
He was the art director on Beast Within.
Okay, so by the way, your audio for whatever reason is getting a little crackly. I don't know if something got. Are you just using your computer audio or?
Yeah.
Okay, so obviously you hadn't been cast Dean at that point, so they were just having fun. This must have been just a inside joke.
We did it was basically a proof of concept, just to do some test shots. And
so whoever made this video must have actually thought this was the real Gabriel Knight. No,
I've never seen that video before, and it's just so wrong on so many levels.
So when you did your Kickstarter campaign, you shared a lot of backstage photos, and we found some of those, and I just thought I would share some of them with you now, and maybe you can tell us a little bit of what you remember from the shoot here. This is this is the Hunt Club, right?
Yeah. So
anyways, if anything pops to mind, you don't have to go over it, but there's just some fun shots here with do you remember who what this person's role was?
I'm sure he was, part of the film crew, but I don't remember exactly.
This guy is very funny, by the way. I really got a kick out of his performance. He was very, very enjoyable. And
I still see Beast Within actors come up on TV now and then.
Yeah.
Funny.
That's great. And there's Grace. Whatever. Did you stay in touch with Joanne at all?
We're friends on Facebook. I don't hear too much from her. I've talked to Will a number of times. There was just so much, I know that the film guys, Will is like a guy who's caffeinated to the 100th degree. That's what it is. That's what we needed, because we literally had to go through that script so fast.
I heard you were,
it was because there were just so many so many shots that we needed. And,
Yeah.
it was just like really fast paced production. These guys were working 12 hours a day, and man.
Yeah. And tell me a little bit about Dean. What was it like working with him?
He was a really nice guy. And, I would go over so the studio was in Oakhurst, and it was in a separate building down, maybe 10-minute drive from the main studio, from the Sierra headquarters, where I had my regular desk. And I was at the time, still working on writing up all the, narrator lines and working with the programmers and playtesting the game. So I would just go over to the blue screen studio when we were shooting, the more important story scenes. Like I remember what the first day with that, all the actors were there for the Hunt Club. I went over for that.
Fun.
I remember Dean crawling on, he actually had built this house that had a roof, because there was a scene where he had to crawl on the roof.
This one here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just played that scene. I didn't know how to get him out of I was having some trouble, but I got him through. Yeah, it seemed like you guys had a hair competition. Just there was a lot of people with a lot of guys with good, long, flowing hair.
Hey man, that was the 90s. Early 90s.
This is one of my favorite shots right here. No, that doesn't get much better than that.
I remember watching that scene. Yeah, the actors were all great, and a lot of fun.
Yeah, good. So
it was such a pleasure to work with real actors, and such a shame that we didn't continue on with that.
I agree. So yeah, good stuff. Let me see. And yeah, I would. I did reach out to Dean. I think he's kind of ready to move on from being recognized in this game, so he politely declined. I still would love to chat with him at some day. There's only a few of us that actually starred in these games, and it would be fun to share our stories. I'd love to chat with Joanne too, but and these are some photos that are these upscaled photos that one of our
really nice.
Yeah, his name's Romulo Desati, and he did this, and plus all these really fun backgrounds.
Great.
Yeah, just beautiful, stuff.
It's such a shame that now Beast Within looks so low res, and
it was high. It was big. It was pretty.
Well, I mean, at the time it was, we did interlacing because of just the size of it. I mean, it was, I think it was on 6 disc CDs.
Yeah.
But it would have been on, 30 if we had the whole full resolution. So, but it's such a shame because now it looks so low res compared to. Well,
it's funny. We, a number of months ago, a guy in Paris reached out to me, and he's a translator for video games. And so he worked for a company back in the 90s. So it was like he came on a little bit after our games were all produced. And he opened a drawer, and there were 5 VHS cassette tapes of all 5 chapters from Phantasmagoria 2. And they were they were sent for translation.
Oh,
so
wow.
it was all the video, all the spoken scenes. So there's still a lot of, just Curtis walking around but not talking, which wasn't captured. But he basically said, I've had these for 20 years. I took them I felt they were going to get thrown in a dumpster somewhere. So I just held on to them, and I'm wondering if you're interested. And so we did a little Kickstarter campaign just to get them digitized. And so we got all 5 digitized, and, it's not high res by any means, but it's so much better than what you see in the game. And so now there's, I don't know what the next step is, but we have, probably 65-70% of the video footage for this game, that if ever there was a remaster, we would be able to use that.
Oh man, I've heard that the original masters for Beast Within just don't exist, that they were dumped at some point.
Were you around when when did you leave, Sierra? Were you around to the end and part of the whole, I heard they call it like Chainsaw Sunday or whatever it was, where everything just,
yeah.
died. Yeah. What was that like?
it was scary, you know. I didn't get a pink slip that day, thank goodness. But yeah, I mean, you know, and then we moved it. Then they moved it to Seattle, and then they sold the company. And you know, after they sold the company, it just went downhill immediately. I mean, when I was working on GK3, which took forever. I mean, I think we were 3 years in production because, you know, we switched producers, we switched teams a couple times. You know, and it was like the other, you know, we were in a big building in Seattle, and the other teams were all working on, you know, action games, and it just felt like, you know, kind of like the last dinosaur in the building. I mean, company wasn't really into adventure games anymore, and you know, we kind of knew it would be the last adventure game, and you know, the team members weren't really that into it, and it's just like it was like pulling a load uphill to get that game out, you know, get it finished and get it out. So much different than the conditions that, you know, we had in the first few games in terms of the enthusiasm and the, you know, the belief in the final product and the excitement, and just the whole industry had changed so much by then.
What a shame too, to think. I mean, I imagine the thinking was that these games weren't going to stand the test of time. They weren't going to have a life. There was a shelf life. And so the idea of just taking everything and dumping it, getting rid of it, not holding on to any of this. I mean, I know that, you know, so many people are already clamoring for how great it would be to see, you know, that the technology is there now to remaster these games, if only the tapes were there to use. I know that. Did you ever play, or do you know anybody at the was it Tex Murphy, those Tex Murphy games?
I did play the first one of those at least, but I haven't really thought about them since.
Well, they were able to salvage their tapes, and they're in the middle of a huge remastering project right now, and the footage that they have been able to share is pretty stunning. It's really, it almost looks like I would
love that so much, but yeah.
No luck, unfortunately. Well,
I mean, it was a pleasure to redo the first game. You know, we redid the first game.
Yeah, how was that?
Anniversary. You know, it was so nice to be able to take all those backgrounds and characters and do them in a, you know, sort of update the graphics so beautifully. You know, it was just fun to revisit all that. And I did make some changes. You know, we added a few little scenes, and you know,
all new voice talent. Or did you connect anything from before? Did anything kind of overlap? Anybody?
We did all new voice talent. Yeah. I mean, the thing is that, you know, all those actors now that we had originally, there's no way we would get them for, you know,
right,
anything close to what but yeah, it was a pleasure, you know, and it would be so great to do that. You know, think about The Beast Within, though, is like, would you then remake it in animation, you know, because I don't know that you could do an FMV game now, redo it.
You know, it's funny. I mean, I don't know if you ever, I just discovered, and I'm you know, I'm out of touch. So I was at a friend's house the other day, and his 16-year-old daughter told me about a YouTuber who goes by Markiplier. And he's a fascinating, you know, he's been around. He's done 2 or 3 now. We started to watch it the other night. He does these choose your adventure video games, Markiplier. And he'll do like a little 5-minute video. The first one we watched is called Heist. And so he's on a heist, and the camera is you, and he's talking to you, and you're on a, you know, you've broken into a museum together. And then you go, he's very funny. It's unbelievably well produced. I mean, it's unbelievably, you know, high quality. And then at the end of every 5 minutes, you have to make a choice. And then he just used the YouTube algorithm by having 2 unlisted videos come up of going in this door or that door. And the only way, and there's like 30 or 40 different endings. And so you always have to start at the beginning and kind of scroll through it. But it's stunning how good it is, and how, you know, it's not a game per se. It's all the movie footage. But it just seems to me that it almost feels like this would be easier now to do than ever before, but based on all of the technology. You know, it just seems to me that, and I know there are more interactive movies, like I know Black Mirror did it, but I don't know. It just seems to me that if ever there was a time to go back to and really knock a FMV game out of the park I know that there's some independent companies that are doing them, but it would be neat to see another big budget version of it.
Yeah, it would. And I don't know if there's any chance, with virtual technology for VR technology, for
so
them
cool
to use live actors, or I don't really know enough about it to know if that would be possible. But, I know 3D has been hugely popular for many, many years, but I just, I've never seen 3D characters that can replace a human being, really. I mean,
no.
They do facial mapping and stuff, which make them pretty damn good, but
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I want to let you go in a second. I do want to read a letter that someone shared with me to you. And it turns out both of these people I'm going to share with you are from Greece, surprisingly, but that's just a coincidence, but they're all over your fans are everywhere, all over the world. And I'm just going to read this to you from, her name is Selena. Dear Jane, I'm a huge fan of your games, especially the Gabriel Knight series. And I wanted to say how much the work that you and other women at Sierra, including Roberta Williams and Lorelei Shannon, meant to me growing up. As closeted trans teen growing up in Greece, I sought any escape I could find to the dysphoria I experienced living in a body that felt alien to me. Video games, especially adventure games, were one such escape. Nothing brought me more joy than being able to play as a female character, whether it was Adrian, Laura, Bo, Rosella, or Grace, the latter being my all-time favorite. Everybody loves Grace. For a few hours, I could forget all about the bullying and get to inhabit the role of these intelligent and three-dimensional women. Nowadays, it may not seem like a big deal, but back then there were hardly any playable female characters in games. And most of them were written and designed by and for straight men. You and the others not only showed everyone that there was a place for female protagonists or co-protagonists in games, but that there was a place for women in games, period, and right at the top, no less. Back in the 90s, I emailed you a few times and you were kind enough to respond to all my questions. I doubt you would remember me now, and I've changed my name since anyway, but thank you for taking the time to respond to those emails then, and thank you for doing this interview now. You belong in the Hall of Fame of gaming and storytelling, and I hope you realize how great your contribution to the medium has been. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Love, Selena Demetria Provias.
Gosh, it's fantastic.
Isn't that something?
It's so, yeah. To be able to make somebody's day better is, so fantastic.
Yeah, I'll have to say,
for that letter, it's very sweet.
You're welcome. And and I'm going to share you one more video, and then we'll let you go. I'm going to have a couple more questions, then we'll go. So this one came from Chris from Greece. I'm going to share it with you. It's a great little thing here he sent. Let me see how do I get this. There we go. Yeah, there's that. Let me move this here. Sorry. I'll edit all this in post when we play it. All right, there we go. Here we are.
Hi Jane, hi Paul, this is Chris. I don't really have a question for you. I just want to say thank you, because for the past 25 years or so, I had two places on the top of my bucket list to visit, and one of those was New Orleans, and the other one was Rennes-le-Château. And I'm happy to say that this year I got to tick off one of those. I went to Rennes-le-Château, and it was an extraordinary experience. It was actually kind of surreal because it's so well depicted in the game that being there felt like being in the game, like being one of the characters. I got to visit Tour Magdala, Sonier's grave, the church. I even found the Devil's Armchair. I found a chateau that I'm pretty confident, like 99%, that Montreux's Vineyard was based off of. And I just wanted to share a few images of the place and just say thank you.
I feel like I was just there.
Wow.
A much more grainy.
Brings back a lot of memories.
It's really neat to see your inspiration or what.
And I mean, if you're up to it, you can let us know what's going on with Grace, and did she ever got to finish the Shattenyagr school in India, and you know, what about that baby?
It's all been hanging out there for 20 years, I can say.
It's funny. Chris is a connection to Robert. He's a composer for video games, and a long while ago, Chris said that he was invited to some conference via Zoom, and Robert was kind enough to join them and give them some advice. So it's kind of neat to see him connecting with you as well.
Well, thank you for sending those images. That's really neat.
You're welcome. I'm happy to. You know what I'll do is, if you don't mind, I'll forward them to you and let you have access to them. I'll send you that video too. All right, I'm going to leave you. I have a quick little just questionnaire I'd like to do with a few people. So I'm just going to ask you like 10, 12 questions, some basic stuff, and then we'll let you go. So they're quick answers, no need to go in too deep. What was the last book you read?
I just read The Eight by Catherine Neville. I listened to it on audio.
Okay.
It's very Dan Brownish.
What was the last movie you watched?
We just watched one called You Will Not Be Alone, which is this new horror movie that's a medieval witch story. The language is Macedonian. It's very artsy, but it's pretty cool.
Excellent.
I love witches.
What's your favorite type of foreign food?
Probably Thai.
What kitchen appliance do you use every day?
Every day. I guess my stove, but I love my Instapot. It's not every day, but it's at least 2 or 3 times a week.
Are you a clean or messy person?
I'm pretty clean.
Window or aisle?
Aisle.
Morning person or night owl?
Night owl.
What's the scariest animal?
Bear.
Not wolf, not werewolf. Exercise, worth it?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Is your glass half full or half empty?
Half full.
Had to take a moment. What's your proudest accomplishment?
I guess just being a published author from Gabriel on.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I'm going to just ask you your final question and answer it however you want. What is next?
Right now I'm continuing to write romances. I would love to get involved with gaming again if that were to be an option.
Yeah, well, I hope so. Maybe maybe there's a way to make it happen. That would be nice. Well, in the meantime, Jane Jensen, do you still go by Jane Jensen? I see Jane Holmes, or is Jane Jensen as a professional name?
Yeah, I mean, Jensen is my legal middle name now, but generally in my current life, I go by Jane Holmes. Gotcha.
And you guys are not on a farm anymore. You're up in the Pacific Northwest, right?
That's right.
All right. Well, me too. But it's a real pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for taking the time. And I will be YouTube premiering this probably the first Sunday of next month. I'll let you know in advance. And if you want to pop on and maybe join the chat, people would get a real kick out of having you there. But I'll let you know when we'll get it. And in the meantime, wish me luck. I play chapter 6 of Gabriel Knight 2. You
gotta keep going. It gets really good at the end.
I know. I've already killed Gabriel twice now, so
no.
There's probably some more deaths in his future.
All right. Well, just thank you to all the fans out there that continue to talk to us about Gabriel Knight and support our Kickstarters. And thank you.
Yeah. All right. Take care, Jane.
Greatly
Appreciate your
appreciated.
time. All right.
All
Bye-bye.
right, bye.
Well, that was fun. Man, what a cool, intelligent, prolifically talented person Jane Jensen is. An hour and a half just flew by. She told me she only wanted to do an hour, so I had to be a little bit careful for time, but she was generous enough to give us an extra 25 minutes. And I think she had fun. I hope she did. I hope you did too. If you liked today's interview and you want to see more of me talking to content creators of some of your favorite video games, then please do me a favor and join me on Patreon. The only way I can find the time to do these is because of the generous support of my Patreon members. And the only way I can do more of these is if we get some more Patreon members to help out. So please jump on there for a little while and help make this this project grow. We'd really appreciate that. Another way to help make it grow is to let people know about it. Please like and subscribe on YouTube and Twitter and join our Discord family. And please do what you can to let people know about our project. We're still pretty small, and I think there's a lot more people out there that would appreciate it if they knew about it. So please help me spread the word. Meanwhile, have a great day, and thanks for watching, and we will see you next time. All right. Bye, everyone.